Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes. I am the Chief Sales Architect here at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Here at Bulletproof Selling, whole thing we're about is that hope is not a sales strategy. And so we are here to help increase the performance and the results of salespeople and their teams. So all of these live streams that we do, they feature insights from authors, speakers, consultants, coaches, and from the people like our guest today that are actually out there managing sales teams in the field, which means they're going to have the most up-to-date information on what's working and what's not in this great wide industry of sales that we love so much. And of course, every single episode, my commitment to you is we will create a system that then you can map out and implement, no matter the size of your goals or the size of your team, to help you better get those results that you're after. So joining me today, very excited to talk with this guest. His name is Nate Lucius. Now, Nate serves a very interesting service in the niche of the wealth management industry. Not only does he think like a systems guy, like a sales guy should, but he's also helping others understand that mindset. So I'm really excited to talk with him today. Nate, welcome to the show, sir. Tell us a little bit about you, your company, and the salespeople that you manage. Give us an idea about what kind of sales leader you are.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me first off. So as he said, I'm Nate Lucius. I'm the president of Gradient Financial Group. And really what we do, we have several organizations under the Gradient umbrella, but ultimately what we do is we help independent wealth management firms, RIAs, reps, insurance agents, gets a little detailed, but we help independent wealth management firms be more efficient, market better, compete in the large wealth management industry from a marketing, technology, and ultimately, if they're seeing and helping more end consumers, we're helping them place those consumers into the right strategies. Could be managed money, annuity, life, Medicare, whatever those consumers are needing, we're helping those advisors to fulfill, with technology being honestly the kind of the foundation of what we're helping them to do to be more efficient and to grow.
Love it. So streamlining those processes throughout the life cycle for the companies that you work with. That's
Right.
great. And so tell me about how many salespeople do you manage?
So we've got within our organization, we've got about somewhere between 60 and 70 sales, direct salespeople in the Gradient Financial Group companies on the phone every single day, helping in different varieties from tech, marketing, and ultimately through product.
And talk to me about the sales cycle that your folks go through. So I imagine that if you're targeting the owners of these independent firms, there's a barrier to entry in that you have to get their attention first. Then you've got to earn their trust because they're dealing with people's money and you're asking to deal with their money. So walk me through the sales cycle of what that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's unique in a sense, because some advisors that we work with, we are getting them to work with us for a very specific thing. Could be a product. Okay, we are very strong in the unique financial product realm. And over the last year, as interest rates are low, markets are high, I think that's been a very positive thing for us because we've got a lot of products that others frankly don't. Okay, now going more full circle, our job is to help them not have 27 systems that they run. Okay. And that's something I do want to talk about if we get there is how do you streamline, especially in today's environment? There's 17 systems you run and they're all the greatest thing and none of them work together. So ultimately for us, it's about the foundation of their business. How do you marry workflows and CRM and how do you do that? So the sales cycle ultimately starts where we're helping an advisor with one or two things. Could be a marketing thing, could be a product. And then we have about 30 training events per year in a non-COVID world that we do live. And ultimately, as our advisors see what we're doing, it develops into that. So I'd say 30 days would be short, and a year or two would be long. And so that's
absolutely. And so for the salespeople you manage, then obviously the world of sales shifted a lot in 2020. But if for a lot of us, it changed a little bit, and for some of us, it changed a lot. So for your salespeople, I imagine that a lot of them weren't hopping on airplanes regularly because a lot of their touches might have been just through regular communication channels, email, phone. Maybe they were traveling for the training environment that you were talking about. But talk to me a little bit about how you saw the industry shift in 2020 when COVID affected all of us, especially the end users of the people that you're dealing with. They can't meet with their clients anymore. So how did that affect your salespeople?
Yeah, I would say to start at kind of a higher level, one of the things we've done here as a company, and I remember we did it 2 years ago, is we put in a system, happens to be Microsoft Teams. Okay, I'm not saying that's the best one,
Right.
but when we put it in 2 years ago, pre-COVID, everybody looked at it and said, well, it's an IM system, or it's what do I do with it? Okay. And so our IT folks here said, certainly they didn't predict COVID, but it became an all-encompassing system. Okay. And really what we've focused on here is how do you take an all-encompassing system like that, which we've built for our advisors, and how do you do that? I think one of the things that everybody struggled with, do I use Zoom? Do I use StreamYard? What do I use? Okay, it doesn't really matter, but if you keep saying to yourself, doesn't matter, I'll just add it, I'll add it. What we focus on when we build technology and when we deploy it is you don't have to have the very best individual thing, right? In every single sector, because if you do, you can't have them work together. So ultimately for us, and I think anybody listening, whether you're sales, you're leading a sales organization, if you were to draw out the roadmap of how many systems and how many things do your salespeople or the end person you're selling to interact with, it's a staggering number.
Oh yeah.
I'm proud here that that's something we've focused on, is let's cut out the stuff that we can make do. It still has to work well, but running it together in an efficient manner is probably the biggest thing we have. And certainly we're not perfect. I'm not suggesting we are, but having that efficient, less logins, less systems, less cost has been a big thing for us and for our salespeople over the last year.
So if I'm thinking as a sales leader, and I've got a small sales team of my own, but obviously do a lot of work with clients with massive sales teams, because you really present an interesting question, because we see this all the time. I've got all these systems, none of them talk to each other, but I've got to be able to log into all of them. Right. This one's for marketing, and this one's for outreach, and this one's for this, and this one's for project management. If I was advising a company and I said, if you had to only choose one system to strip it all away, and obviously you're going to lose functionality because you can't do everything with every system, I would say just keep your CRM. Would you agree with me on that one, or do you have another idea for something that also serves the main role?
Yeah, I mean, you can't have a successful sales organization without profiling and CRM and all the things you do for your end consumer. So yes, but then the question is, can you from that system, can you do other things? And if you can, and your salespeople, and we talk about this all the time, they say, well, if we only had. That's like the thing that comes up in any organization, right? Well, man, if we only had this. Well, we've got this. Does it work well? Yes, it does. And so I think, gaining that extra 3 or 5 or 10% of, this one little thing that over here that's so great, stick with the 90% that works and make it happen. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't innovate, you don't add things, but I think salespeople and organizations, including ours, get lost in, well, we got to add this and we got to add this.
Sure.
And pretty soon, 2 years later, you got 17 systems and you only really use 12 of them.
And so the idea being then, if we're handling salespeople, right? If we were handling operational people or project managers, they wouldn't need a CRM. But if we're handling salespeople, and a CRM is the basic thing they've got to make sure works and functions, because they got to be able to maintain client records, reach out to people, and all that good stuff. Where do you find the best salespeople really leveraging their CRMs? Because the more organizations I talk to, the more I find out that it's really spread all over the map. Some people are just using it for basic note recording, and some people are running their lives out of it. Like that's their business. Without you unplug the CRM, they're done, because that's where they keep everything they're going to be doing today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. Right. So what do you find the very best salespeople on your team doing with that CRM to really get a leg up, to gain an edge on not having to rely on hope as their sales strategy? So,
I think for us, and I know data is a kind of a cop-out, but ultimately for us, what we try and focus on, so if you're working with an end consumer or we're working with advisors, whatever you're doing, you've only got one real set of data, right? If you're my customer, okay, you have only got one profile, right? You've got one date of birth and you've got one everything. And so we try and limit the best we can to say, we're only collecting that once, okay? And it happens to live in our system and it feeds to our CRM. But you think about all those data points. So yes, our CRM is used a lot, but what's really used is we pull data from the CRM. We've got a couple other apps that sit out there, and we've got a centralized portal, which functions as you've got, sales and production and family and birthdays. And so we try and pull, and the only place you can update is in our portal. And such, if it is updated there, then it's going to push back to other things. So I think getting lost in, how are you updating and where does all of your data live? That's been a big transformation for us over the last 2 or 3 years, because that's where things go sideways. You get 3 different birthdays, and then Susie updates one and Johnny updates another, and the salespeople only care about this, and the ops people only care about this. But so it's that one, source of truth, if you will, is kind of the foundation of what we try and build. And again, we're not perfect.
And so it sounds like there's a lot of handoff, and this does happen in great organizations. We've interviewed a couple of guests that use their CRMs as talking mechanisms, if you will, between marketing and operations and sales. And so if we're dealing with just salespeople, because fortunately this can't be an everything show, it's just got to be for salespeople. So if we're just dealing from their perspective, what do you find the best salespeople doing now that we are in this entirely virtual environment? How are they leveraging their CRM to make sure that those handoffs happen? Because a lot of things can get dropped, right? I enter this account note, I tag somebody in marketing, but if they never see the message, or they misread the message or misinterpret the message, suddenly the right thing doesn't happen to move this account closer to closing. So how are you finding salespeople really doing a good job of making sure that handoff happens? First
off, we limit our information to, let's call it 20. Okay, there's 20 things that we think are important. There's a million things, right, when you're dealing with consumers and customers and sales, but the 20 things that are important to the organization as a whole. Okay, if you want to keep, in your cell phone that the person's dog's name is Freddie, and they like margaritas, sounds great. But for ours, there's those 20 key pieces of information. What are they doing for marketing? Okay, what are they doing for the things in their business, planning, product? And those are the things that we feel. So we keep our salespeople focused on, make sure that data, make sure when you talk to them, that information is across our organization. And that's ultimately what I think the advantage of, CRMs get complex, but you've got to keep them simple. You can get into Salesforce and do a million things, but like I said, it could be 15 things for somebody, or for us, it's around 20 data points. We need you, Mr. Salesperson, to make sure you are driving forward and understanding. And ultimately, it sounds simple, but that's kind of what we try and focus on.
I mean, simplicity actually makes this process better. In a lot of the folks that we're talking with, we go into client sites to talk about their sales teams, how they can improve. And the number one thing that we hear is, my people are just, asking questions to check in. But when I listen to their calls, there's just no account movement. So 20 touches in the course of a year, they're nowhere nearer to becoming a client than they were at the beginning of the year. And so what we found to be really effective, and what you're doing, is to set aside what are those 20 objectives that we need to hit as far as information gathering. And if all I can do in my next call is get 1 or 2 more of those fields filled out. What are they doing for marketing? When's your birthday? Where are your kids going to school, if that's pertinent product or service that I sell? Then I'm a step closer than I was yesterday, and I'm much better prepared than any of the other salespeople pursuing that account from my competitors, because they're not taking the time to gather that data unless they're trying to keep it in their heads. But that disappears with 2 calls down the road, 2 more prospect calls. It's gone. I don't know. I don't remember what the heck we were talking about. So it's brilliant that you have those things. We call those micro objectives, in that you've only got these 20 things to accomplish. If you get all 20 things, you have everything you need to show up with, because when the buying window is, when the budget is, who the decision maker. You just got it all. So it's great that you're doing that. Let's talk a little bit about, because I know you're not the only company in the world that does what you do, but yet we're always trying to get better. You've mentioned a couple times we're not perfect. Hey, that's brilliant. That means we know we can get better. So where do you find the salespeople in your industry have the biggest gap to really make up, as far as what they could be doing better to either prospect, conduct outreach, learn from what's happening in their sales, or maybe it's just the conversion point during that sales conversation? Where's the biggest gap that folks could do a better job in?
Yeah, I think if you ask any salesperson, are you good at your job? Okay, the answer is absolutely I am.
Of
Okay,
course,
but
I'm the best there ever was.
one of the things we've done a lot, and we are kind of a half, our salespeople are kind of half internal, if you will, and then they're also on the road a lot in a traditional year.
Hybrid,
And
yeah.
I think when you listen to phone calls, and we've done a ton of that, listening to videos, listening to phone calls, like what are we actually talking to our people about? One of the things that I talk about and we talk about is like cut the weather talk. Okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just mean, hey, how's the weather in wherever? But in general, what it means is a lot of people are struggling, right, in their business. Some are not. Okay. Our organization and our advisors generally have been very good in terms of sales, but cut the weather talk. Like when you go into a call, of course, you've got 30 seconds or 2 minutes of, let's talk about whatever. But right now, more than ever, you're calling with a purpose. And if you're not calling that person with 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 or 3 things of, hey, here's how we can help you, or here's what I think we need to change, or calling to have a real conversation of, hey, the reason your business is struggling is because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, cut it out. Stop all the, you hang up, and most salespeople, you hang up a 37-minute phone call. How'd it go? Well, I think it went really great. We really built the relationship. And relationships, are deep until they feel like you're not adding value. And as soon as you're not adding value, you're done. So we try and focus on, we're not, and like I said, we can improve on that. That's the reason I bring it up, is that yes, relationships are important, but adding value is way more important than any relationship you're going to have in a business setting. So that's something that we're constantly striving to get better at, and not feeling like, man, I was on the phone for 6 hours today, did a really good job.
If I don't have any of those micro objectives accomplished, if I've moved none of my accounts closer to at least knowing more about them, so that when we do get to the point we're ready to become a client, they're ready to go. Yeah, you're right. It's conversation. You might as well just hang out at a bus stop.
Right? That was a great conversation. What did you accomplish? Well, not really sure.
Yeah, not really sure. And so it's having that data to be able to show you. I mean, if you were my sales leader and I've spent 6 hours on the phone, I'd want to say, I gathered 47 pieces of those, 40, long objectives that we've set. That's okay. You made some progress. Maybe we could work on doing better. Maybe we need to book more meetings. But
the gentleman that goes through and really focuses on quality of, sales calls, and whether it's video or call, we kind of break it down into categories. So like, did you call them on a specific, consumer product, something that needed to get solved? Did you call them on a coaching item, right? Here's what our other folks are doing that I think you can do that will really help you. Or did you just call them to, check on the weather? Okay.
Right.
Those are the 3 things we break down. And yes, you're going to have a combination, but if those things skew too far, and almost all of them are in column, check on the weather, we're not doing our job. And frankly, I'm not sure what value you're adding.
And so do you feel like if you could only choose one, would you rather have your salespeople calling with a specific problem that they think your prospect has that they can solve, or because that's always a good thing to have, right? And if that's all you got, you're probably doing better than most. Or would you rather them be showing up to the call with all of the things that the other salespeople are hearing their prospects complaining or struggling with? And obviously there's a difference there. One, I've got, I know that this industry is struggling with XYZ. My products or services can solve that. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. and Miss Prospect, you're suffering too. Or, hey, of the 87 calls that got made yesterday, Bob, we're finding that most of the people in your situation are struggling with this because I just heard it from, my morning meeting, my morning huddle.
I think it's option B, which is in our industry, all these independent wealth management firms, especially in a normal year, we've got all kinds of trainings and everybody gets together. That hasn't happened, right? And you can do Zoom, and we do a lot of that, but they want to know, and everybody out there wants to know, what are other successful people doing? Okay. And so we have, it's called $1 Million Minds. It's a group of like-minded individuals that we get information, the best advisors in the country, and that's what we use in a roundabout way to, what are others doing to be successful in this environment? And I don't want to hear something from some home office sales guy that they think might work. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in who has done this, how has this worked, and how do I do it? Okay, that's what I'm interested in. So ultimately, what our best advisors are doing, and what we're able to take from them and share with our community of advisors, that's the best thing we can do, and that's the best thing any sales organization can do.
So let's talk about building this into a system then, because I think this would be valuable for anybody that's part of any sales team. Even if you're a sales team of one, if you begin tracking the challenges that you hear your prospects talk about, even if it takes you 3 weeks to build a decent list, at least you'll know, hey, these people were challenged with this, they're solving it in these ways, and here's how I can, come in and help accelerate those results with what I sell, right? But at least you're showing up with value, and that you're giving them more than just, I think this might work. Would you like to buy my stuff? So when we talk about building systems, we talk about trimming hope away from our sales strategy. So the acronym TRIM is what we use. So TRIM. First one is a trigger. And so if I really want to begin showing up with really quality information, that here's how other people in my prospect situations are solving their big problems. And hopefully, I come in at some point to be able to accelerate those, or why am I getting on the phone? But what would you consider the thing that really would kick that off? Is that at the beginning of a quarter? Would you do that every day as part of like a $1 million sales huddle? What would you begin doing to really say, here's when we need to bring this system into effect and get this really, ramped up and off the ground?
Like how would we launch it? Is that
how would we launch it? Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So what we do is, everybody wants to blast email. Okay. That's like a salesperson's dream, right? I just blast it out.
Right.
Everybody gets it. They understand it. They consume it and they do it. Well, that's not the way it works. So inside of, our portal and our technology, we do have updates and we do have important things. So wherever people are going, right? Your customers are going, whatever that is where you want to have it. Okay. But we also take those ideas on a weekly basis, and we provide a video content to our salespeople. Okay, it's already done for them. They just have to physically do it and record it in their own way. So a video, a Monday or a Tuesday morning video. Okay, I think 30 or a 60-second video is probably the most effective thing you can do. I mean,
love it.
A 17-paragraph email, forget about it. But a quick email, we do some texting to our user group of, hey, here's a quick idea. And then ultimately, you got to get out there and you got to talk about it. And so we're a big, and we always have been a big, you got to dial the phone. You got to make things happen. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of it's a couple different things we do, but a video message, and here's what we're doing, here's what's working for us has been a very effective thing to do over the last 12 or 13 months.
So I find that the trigger then is going to happen every week. So the beginning of a week, and it might even start a little bit in planning, like on Friday. Totally get that, because you want to start off the gate hard during your ideal call block hours on Monday. But at the beginning of every week, at the very least, you're taking that information, you're putting it together into a 60-minute video. You can send out the script to your salespeople, have it recorded in their own voice, of course, with them on camera, and that provides a piece of value-added content to the prospects. So that's the trigger we've got. Now, in order to make this thing repeatable, because you know very well as much as I do that we could do this for a week and we might get a couple of results, but it's got to be an ongoing thing. Like, our prospects need to expect that value-added message to come through if I'm really going to be looking for it and paying attention. How would you make sure that this is repeatable? Does it live as a task set within their CRM? Is it something that you check in with, during your morning meeting on Monday to say, hey, everybody get your videos ready? How do you make sure this happens every week?
Yeah, so a couple of things. We have a Monday morning, just like a lot of groups, a Monday morning, here's what's going on for the week. Here's what we're sending out. Here's what we're focusing on. Then the videos go. And then we have a Friday check-in as well. And we don't have 100% of who exactly got it, but Friday is kind of the recap and where are we going, where are we headed next week. So in our business and in every business, we talk about certain things of, it works so well, we stop doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did we stop doing that thing that was working? So to us, it's a Monday and a Friday, and then we have really good sales leaders here, in our organization that's their job, and we have quality control people. What are we doing? What are we calling on? How do we sound? What are we doing? So it's a weekly thing, though. We generally like to focus on what are we doing this week and next week, and looking ahead 3, 4, 5 versus a 6-year sales plan, which I think is extremely difficult.
Yeah, because it's going to change too much.
organizations that come out with, here's what we're going to do over the next 4 years. Generally, you can do it, but I think that's harder now than it's ever been.
And I think like you mentioned, doing this every week and planning it every week makes it really relevant, because the world could change. The election cycle could cause something to go completely in another direction, especially for people in your industry, right? These high wealth people, somebody getting elected, even at the state level, is going to affect taxes, it's going to affect inheritance, it's going to affect all of the things that they care about. So it's incredibly important to make this thing happen every week and not try to, here's what we're going to talk about, in 2022 in the third quarter. Good luck with that, because unless it's really generic, you're probably not going to get away with it. So I love it. We have a trigger every week. We have making it repeatable, in that it's something that you talk about at your Monday meeting. Everybody make sure you get that out. And now the other part of this, the I in trim, is making it improvable. And so something that you touched on, and I know a lot of software platforms allow us to do this, is actually reporting back with what your open rate might have been, your watch rate. If this is a 60-second video and I got 50 salespeople sending one out for each of them, how many of them are getting watched the full minute? How many of them are stopping at the 45-second point or the 30-second point? Or, boss, I sent 18 of these out and none of them were opened. That's another problem to deal with. So how would you make sure that this video content marketing you're doing every single week to add value that's relevant, here's what we're hearing is working in your business model, Mr. and Miss Prospect. How would you make sure that you improve that week over week with all of the salespeople you got using this thing?
So I think there's two aspects of that. One is making sure we're sending out improved content, right? We're not sending out things that don't. So that's where we use our group of our best, our $1 million minds, our advisors, to say, what are those things? These 4 people did it, kind of sort of worked, but here's what they're doing. So then you're stepping up to improve the message and improve how it actually should be done, right? So you're not taking that call from the home office guy who hasn't sold anything. And so that is one aspect. You got to make sure your own content, because if it doesn't improve, you can track all the click rates you want. Nobody's going to buy stuff. So I think that, and two, on the other side, you've got to make sure we're improving on just how are we getting better and how are we tracking. And ultimately for us, we have put a lot more people in the middle of, click rates and all that stuff are great, but ultimately getting feedback from our salespeople and from our advisors. How is this working? What do you, so it's a combination of, yes, everybody wants the technology answer, but having good people who can really focus on how are we doing and improving upon that is something that I think everybody wants 100% technology, but that's just not the case. And it's not.
That ties right into the final element of this, which is making it measurable, in that we want to make sure if we're taking the time each week, because it may take me 5 or 10 minutes to put together a solid 1-minute video, because I might have to start, because not everybody's like made for the camera like you or I, obviously, So we're out there doing this. It takes time. It takes time away from calls, and then I have to load the thing and send it to my list, and then I've got to plan my follow-up calls around it. Hey, just checking in to see if you had any questions on that video. I forgot to mention this one thing that you're really going to need to know to implement it, whatever that value piece of information is. So if we're making this thing measurable, obviously we're tracking, did it generate any inbound calls? Did it generate any email responses? Would love to know more. What other ways would you measure this type of a campaign, this weekly value-added content campaign?
I think the easiest ones, and what we try and do, we try and do half of our messages generally that are focused for our advisors working, in your business, right? That's how are you selling? What are you doing? And half of them that are working on your business. Okay, what are you doing to look forward 3, 6, 9 months? Say, what should I be doing different? So what we try and do from a measurement perspective is you have to have something that's measurable. Yes, we can all look at how many emails did they open out of 100, but ultimately it's got to result in something. So as an example, if we're saying to people, and I think this is a good point, if you're in the face-to-face, group event business, which our folks are, and that's been challenging, but let's get something out there that's actionable. Okay, we are hearing from our best advisors in their communities and states that are allowing it. Okay, get back out there in front of groups of people. Okay, and then on the back end, we can track who's spending money on activities like that. Okay, and we've seen here over the last 3 months, as we've got that out there, the spend on getting in front of groups of people has ramped. And so I think it's more than just, 62% opened and 12% watched it. It's a measurable thing that you're asking people and sharing with them to do, and then are they doing it? It's the result, not just the technological aspect of click through and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and then finding out, of course, from the prospects themselves, the ones that implement it, did this help your business?
That's right.
An important piece of the measurable part that's easy to overlook is, is the thing that I'm doing, this video added content, the conversations I'm having, is it creating lifetime customers? It's,
Right.
It's great to get one sale. If I could bump my conversion rate up 25%, that'd be a banner year. But are these people just coming on for one sales cycle, or are they cycling out extremely quickly because they realized I've oversold what it is I'm trying to offer?
Correct.
So making sure we're continuing to adding value, with them in their lives and their businesses long past the point of sale. Of course, you can do that great with video content, especially if you set up a system like you guys have where you're hearing from the best and the brightest. Here's what our end users are doing, even outside the realm of what we do. Maybe they're decorating their offices with lilacs that year, and that's just what happened to convert, right? I'm sharing that information. That's valuable, if that's what it is, it's making it happen. So there's brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. How do we find out more about you, Nate, the great firm that you have? And I know you've got a podcast of your own. Tell people about how they can get more involved in the world.
Yeah, so Gradient Financial Group, obviously you can look online, follow us. My brother and I do have a podcast. It's called The Bull, the Bear, and My Brother's Chair. So it's not stock market heavy, it's industry and business leader heavy. So I'd say that'd be something to look at, and ultimately we're all over the place, and so if people want more information or want to talk, I'm always happy to do it.
Love it, sir. Well, thank you so much for sharing that great insight, and make sure you're checking out that podcast if you're listening here. For those of you that are, regular, watchers of this show, thank you for coming back to us. For those of us who join it for the first time, maybe make sure you're going out there following us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Bulletproof Selling for these live streams. We do a couple of these every week. And then, of course, for the podcast that generates from it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere podcasts can be found. So for more sales results, for more sales performance, and more sales systems like the one we built today to help you replace hope with certainty in your sales processes, make sure you're heading over to www.bulletproof-selling.com. Sean Rhodes here. It's been a pleasure serving you alongside Nate Lucius. Nate, let's go out there and make selling bulletproof.
Thanks, Sean.